Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Aries God Archetype, the Fierce Protector, Sacred Masculine class. Today's class is Mars rising from the underworld. This happened on November 22nd. And this is the last piece of the phase 3 of the Mars Synodic Cycle. Next month, December, we will be in phase 4 of the Mars Synodic Cycle. Just to remind you, there are 6 phases to the Mars Synodic Cycle, starting from phase 0 going through to phase 5. So next month we start phase 4. Now, when Mars rose from the underworld, remember, we know when that happens because it's within that 15-degree orb from the sun. So the sun was at 0 degrees, 49 minutes of Sagittarius, and Mars was at 15 degrees, 49 minutes of Scorpio. So this is our agenda for today. It's going to be a pretty quick class unless Maureen and I get into some juicy conversation.
We do that sometimes, yes.
We do. I tell you, I'm just so heartbroken over losing that last class because we had some really fabulous discussion in that last class.
No, we did. Yes.
So let's get started by establishing our grounding and spiritual fortification. Okay. So just close your eyes, get comfortable, relax your hands and feet. Take some deep breaths into your belly. And with each inhale, breathe in just a little bit deeper. Bring that breath all the way down into the tailbone. And feel yourself connect with the earth. Feeling your Earth Star chakra connect to the heart of Gaia. And so we claim this space for the Sophia Christ consciousness. We call in Source, the cosmic Christ and the cosmic Sophia. We call in our higher selves and our indwelling Christos Sophias. We call in Yeshua and Magdalene. We call in our mentorship councils, our galactic teams, and our spirit allies. And we call in the angels and archangels that are aligned with Source. And we ask the goddess Diana to put her full armor of spiritual protection and fortification upon us. And so it is. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So this activation of Mars rising from the underworld happens with Mars standing across the sky from Uranus. So we're going to do an invocation to the god Uranus today.
Okay.
So whenever you're ready, Maureen, take it away.
Okay. I invoke the power of Uranus to radically change my life situation. Bring to me currents of divine freedom and openness. I seek your magnetic and all attractive energy to shatter past patterns and bring forth new and exciting developments into my life. And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you. Okay, so this month is almost over. Today is the 27th. Is that correct?
That's right.
Today's the 27th. So we've had Thanksgiving already. And we see here on November 22nd, that's when the fierce protector as Mars rose from the underworld. And you'll notice that just a few days before we had that full moon in Taurus. So a couple of things I want to point out about that full moon in Taurus is that it was a lunar eclipse. And it was a partial lunar eclipse, but the moon was eclipsed by 97%, according to NASA. So it's the longest partial lunar eclipse that we have had. It lasted for nearly 6 hours since February 18th of 1440. That was 581 years ago. And it is going to be the longest eclipse up until February 8th of 2669, another 648 years from now. So that eclipse, which launched this whole series of eclipses on the Taurus-Scorpio axis that we're going to be going through all of next year and up until October of 2023, was a very potent and powerful eclipse. And it's very much a part of the signature of this activation of the fierce protector rising from the underworld. So we'll look a little bit at that in a minute. Just want to remind you that tomorrow, if you're on the West Coast, and Monday, if you're on the East Coast, we are having that Mercury Sun superior conjunction in Sagittarius. And remember, the 4 events of a Mercury Synodic cycle. This is the first event. So this is the beginning of a whole new Mercury Synodic cycle. So real quickly, I want to stop my share here. Oh, no, I didn't want to stop my share. I want to go back to share. Hold on. I wanted to stop the slide. That's what I want to do. Okay, and bring up for you, this is the chart of the lunar eclipse. And what we see here, remember, it was a full moon. Whenever there's a full moon, the moon is on one side of the sky, the sun is up on the opposite side of the sky. Whenever there's a full moon, it's a lunar eclipse. Whenever it's a new moon, the sun and the moon are standing together, it's a solar eclipse. And we're actually going to be having a solar eclipse in Sagittarius on December 4th. But here you see this opposition between the sun and the moon for this eclipse. Now, the thing that I want to point out to you is that Osiris, the cosmic Christ, is right here at 0 degrees of Taurus on that eclipse day. Okay, remember, Taurus is all about embodiment. And we have been talking about, ever since the Ascent phase of the sacred feminine started, that we are having this second coming of the Christ as the emergence of Sophia through us. Well, look where Magdalene is, right? The embodiment of Sophia consciousness, right there with the sun within 23 minutes. Within 23 minutes. So the Sophia consciousness emerging through us, fueling us as we are here at this 0-degree mark of Taurus, the embodiment of the cosmic Christ. I mean, this is just incredible. And of course, you know, because she is so closely aligned with the sun, she's also in opposition to the moon, who represents the divine mother. So this was a hugely powerful eclipse. And now look what happens here. We've got the sacred feminine and Merlin together on the eclipse in Capricorn. By the time we go to this activation of Mars rising, so this was on the 19th, 3 days later, look at what's happened. This is the chart for that activation. What we see here is that Osiris, I was trying to find it on here, Osiris, just in 3 days, Osiris has moved the cosmic Christ from 0 degrees of Taurus to 29 degrees of Aries. Okay, 29 degrees, that's the mastery point of any sign, and Aries is the fierce protector, right? This is the Aries Mars Synodic cycle that we're going through. And notice how this Osiris here at 29 degrees is square Pluto in Capricorn at 25 degrees. Remember that squares are breakthroughs in consciousness. Pluto rising from the ashes. Osiris, the fierce protector, the cosmic Christ, rising anew, rising from the underworld, rising from the ashes. And of course, in Capricorn, again, another earth sign, embodiment of, as that wise and compassionate leader who is the elder of the tribe, right? The grandfather of the tribe. So this was huge, what happened on the eclipse, and to 3 days later when the cosmic Christ rose from the underworld. Isn't that phenomenal?
It is. Yes. It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, we tapped into this, like I said, way back when Venus started that ascent phase, and we're seeing in the sky the evidence, the manifestation of what we've been tapped into. So we'll get more into what's going on here later on the later slides, but I wanted you to be able to see from one chart to the next exactly what was going on. And that's why this eclipse here on the 19th is so significant regarding this fierce protector rising from the underworld. So before we get into the rest of those aspects, I want to let you know that I am going to be doing a Taurus Scorpio eclipse video series. And so if you're not a part of my mailing list, I invite you to go here to sign up on my mailing list. Maureen, I know you're on my mailing list.
Yes.
And the reason why I'm inviting you to join my mailing list is because on December 4th, when that solar eclipse happens, I'm going to be sending out a newsletter, which will give you the information on this series, this Taurus Scorpio eclipse video series, and where you can go to subscribe to it. So it'll be a monthly subscription, $13 a month. And during that time period, whenever each of the eclipse of the 7 eclipses come out, I will automatically email whoever subscribes to this the video recording. It'll be kind of similar to what we do in our classes, where I talk about the aspects that's going on and what's all happening and everything. And so those will automatically be sent to you. So from December 20th through October 2023 at $13 a month, that averages to about $42 a video, just to let you know that is a new series that I'm putting together. And the reason I'm putting that together, and Maureen and I discussed this already previously, is because next year is that Pluto return for the United States. And we're going to be having 3 activations of the Pluto return. The first activation will be in February. It's not that far away. It's just a few months away. And so this eclipse series on the Taurus Scorpio axis is going to be very integral to that Pluto return for the United States, because of course Pluto is the Lord of Scorpio. So I invite you to go here to join my mailing list so that when I send out that notice on the 4th, it'll come right to your mailbox. Okay, so it's time to do the closure piece on the Fierce Protector's resurrection point that happened in October. Remember, the resurrection point is when the Sun and Mars are conjunct. And so we see that was here, the Mars, the Sun, they were also conjunct Medusa and Mercury retrograde. And that was happening because of all of these luminary bodies between 15 to 18 degrees of Libra. So when we look at Libra, where that resurrection point is, we want to consider what those Libra archetypes are. And this is a beautiful image that was created by this person here, and that depicts the Libra archetype. But we know this archetype as the good partner, the beloved, and the diplomat. And then we discussed also related to the resurrection point that this was tied into this myth of Osiris. And we know Osiris to be the wise and compassionate leader. And when he rises from the underworld, he becomes the Lord of the underworld. And then in Maureen's chart, what happened was where this resurrection point occurred in her solar return chart, it was trining her solar Osiris Isis conjunction in Aquarius in her solar 4th house. And this is a beautiful image of that Aquarius archetype, which we know as the revolutionary change agent and the visionary. So when you're thinking about closure on integrating that resurrection point for you, you know, you have your Osiris and Isis conjunction in Aquarius flowing all of that energy into this Mars, Sun, Medusa's Mercury retrograde conjunction. You know, Aquarius is all about, you know, your multidimensional self. It's all about I would even say the quantum field. And so the question I would have for you is, when this activation took place for you, how have you become aware that the cosmic Christ, the cosmic Sophia, your inner Christ and your inner Sophia have become more of a safe space within you? Because 4th house is all about safe space, right? 4th house is ruled by Cancer and the moon. And so how has this resurrection point created a new relationship, right, Libra, with that safe space within you in terms of your inner Christos Sophia and the cosmic Christ and the cosmic Sophia? And I'm using these terms because we know that Osiris is the cosmic Christ, Isis is the cosmic Sophia. How has that become more personal to you as a safe space?
Well, internally, I feel that the space where I am is much more secure, and I'm able to understand my own sovereignty, shall we say. That in view of my internal Sophia and Christ, my internal Venus and Mars, they are more compatible internally than ever before. And I feel they're more balanced than they ever were before. Externally, it manifests more in terms of the journey. I'm safe, but achieving that union externally and feeling it externally hasn't happened yet, but I am more secure, I guess, in the journey. So that's how that has affected me.
Wow. And so how did you also experience that fierce protector archetype in terms of its resurrection and perhaps even contributing to feeling more of that balance within you?
I'm not real sure about that. And still working on that. And one thing that has happened externally is an Egyptian exhibit for the goddess or the queen Nefertari, who was the wife, the queen. It's Ramses II. Now Ramses II is the one that that allowed Israelites to go because of Moses and he didn't do it out of the goodness of his heart. He lost because of the plague. So that has come to Portland, and I'm going to see that. And that reminds me of a lot of things I learned there in Egypt. And the fierce protector, in my opinion, was actually played out with Moses. So when I go to see that exhibit, I expect to feel some of that energy. And Sekhmet is there because Nefertari was very, very devoted to Sekhmet. So her statue is there. And I am looking forward to being in her presence again as well. So I guess that's how that plays out. Now, a lot of people may not think of Moses as the fierce protector, but I believe he was. And regardless of whether you approve of his way that he governed or ruled the tribe, he was protecting them. And so that is, and I think that when exhibits like that go around, it is a collective push. It's like you may not be aware that you're feeling that energy of Mars, that fierce protector, but you will. You can't help it. It will be there, and you will come out of there with something different than when you went in.
Yeah.
So I think those things are real important right now.
Right.
Yeah.
To be able to connect with them.
Exactly. And a lot of people are aware of the Osiris Isis connection. They don't study Egyptian mythology, and they know Isis is a goddess and Osiris. They know the names maybe, but they don't know the myth, the history, the way that those entities interact on a astrology chart. So it can be a little confusing when they begin to feel that strong energy and they don't know what that is. And it can come out aggressive, in my opinion. I've seen so much aggression in the last, a few weeks, or it's just that the energy that came from that eclipse and forward with, it's just really amazing.
Right. And I'm so happy you're speaking to that, because, that aggression is the shadow side of the fierce protector, right? The Aries energy in its shadow is very aggressive. And of course, with that eclipse being on that Taurus Scorpio axis, Mars rising from the underworld in Scorpio, those Scorpio influences, those Scorpio energies are going to activate shadow. That's what they
do. Absolutely. And I think that Ramses II, and I just, in my opinion, you cannot underestimate the Egyptian influence on what is happening. Because Ramses II wanted to erase Moses from all history, and he struck his name from tablets, and he did all of that he could to see that Moses was not remembered in any way. But other people said, no, that's not going to happen. He will be remembered. So the fierce protector was, in fact, protected himself from being erased from people's thinking. So, like I said, you may not approve of everything that's written about Moses, but he was a fierce protector, and he was in turn protected. So it's a really interesting dynamic, I think.
It is an interesting dynamic. Absolutely. Absolutely. And, we talked in the last class about how there hasn't been anyone on the world stage in a very long time that has modeled the energy of the fierce protector, male or female. And I really do believe that that now, especially over next year, as we have those Pluto return activations, I am convinced that there is going to be somebody who comes to the forefront, man or woman, that is going to be an embodiment of this fierce protector archetype.
I agree. And there may be both. It maybe needs to represent a balance. And so in one way or another, that fierce protector will come forward.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree with you completely that we'll see that, and we'll know that's what it is. It will be that obvious to us. Yeah,
it will be. And of course, we discussed how important that is, because of the fact that with the fierce protector, with the work that we've been doing with the sacred feminine, the Gemini goddess, we're putting behind us all that patriarchal energy. And it's time now for the world to be reminded of what the sacred masculine energy is. And so by having somebody step onto the world stage that embodies that fierce protector archetype, the world can start to be reminded, remember, re-engage with that sacred masculine energy, so that it can consciously move away from that profane patriarchal energy that is not in any way representative of what the sacred masculine energy is.
Yes, and I believe that this Aries fierce protector will be on the global stage.
Yes.
He will not just be an American or a European or whatever. I mean, he obviously will be one of, he'll have an ethnic background, but he won't be just for one country. So I wouldn't expect this leader to be necessarily a political up and coming rising star. It's something else, because like I said, it's going to be global. So the person will, in fact, be interested in the whole world and how and that can be a problem, if it's a shadow, I mean, which will obviously rise, there will be the desire to maybe be tyrannical. And so there may be an opposing force there that we not in the same person, but in different people that rise on the coattails, say, so to speak, of the Aries protector, wanting to govern, and not give up that control.
Right.
And this global person will not be about control.
Right. Absolutely. I agree with you. So is there anything else around that resurrection point for the fierce protector that is wanting to be spoken to through you, that in terms of how you experienced it and embodied it?
No, I don't have a fierce protector in my life personally. It's from my spiritual studies, I mean, it's from that part of me that feels the fierce protector.
Yeah.
And that's very definite. I mean, that's just been that the whole Mars cycle has been about that for me, just really understanding that there's a balance between the divine feminine and the divine masculine, and so I am protected in ways that are not necessarily conforming to any particular idea of male protecting female, in the outer world. I haven't seen that yet, but I think we will.
Very good. Well, thank you for sharing all of that with us. That was a significant activation for you. And of course, it came really on the heels of our solar return path, because we'll get our new solar return path in January. So, having this activation in October, just basically 3 months shy of your new solar return, this is a significant evolutionary push forward for you at that time.
I think so too. Sets the stage, it's
for what's coming for us next year.
right.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. I agree with that. So just to remind everybody about, the Mars Aries Synodic Cycle, here we are in phase 3, where Mars is leaving the underworld. Next month starts phase 4, the emergence of maturity and knowledge, which is a healing phase, which will take us through May. Now, next month on this slide, phase 3 will drop off, and this will push up, and I will have underneath phase 5 the key dates related to phase 5, which I think it takes us through August of next year.
Okay.
So what I will share now here, which Maureen and I have discussed earlier as well, is that December is going to be the end of my Venus Synodic Cycle Sacred Masculine classes. And also, while we haven't completed this synodic cycle, also the end of my Mars Aries Synodic Cycle classes. It's been 19 months of really intense monthly work, and there's a lot coming up next year with that Pluto return and these eclipses, and we just need to take a break, and we need to be focused on where we're going to be spending our energy to get through that time. Now, what I have decided to do, and this will be news to you, Maureen,
Okay.
is because I think it is so important to continue to follow along with the Venus Synodic Cycle and the Mars Synodic Cycle, because we've seen through the classes how they work together, and we're seeing now how the other major aspects, for instance, the eclipses, for instance, the Mercury Synodic Cycle, for instance, the 3 Uranus Saturn squares this year. We'll be having the final one next month. How all of that works together. They inform each other and support each other. So what I'm going to be doing is, if anybody wants to just go month by month to have their personal solar return chart read for the activations of either the Venus cycle or the Mars cycle, I'm going to offer just a reading on that monthly. That's not going to be a published class. It'll just basically be, these are the aspects in the sky on this activation, and these are how they're interacting with your chart. Maureen's familiar with that because as a student of these classes, she's been getting the personal sessions as a part of that. So basically, Maureen just kind of plucking out that personal session piece to continue to provide that kind of guidance on a month-to-month basis so that you're still consciously engaged. And so that'll be offered on a month-by-month basis at a very reduced rate, because we're not going to be doing classes and support groups and shadow dancing and all the other pieces that come with it. So I'll be sharing more about that opportunity later. But at least next month, which will be the last month in the Mars Synodic Cycle for a class, you will have all of the dates on this slide for phase 4 and phase 5 that'll complete this synodic cycle.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Okay, so here we are with the Christ energies having joined the Sophia energies in this ascension journey. So this month in the sacred feminine classes, we had the activation of the crown chakra, which gives us access to the father aspect of the Christ. And it is here where the sacred masculine has risen from the underworld. And so we truly have this effect of the Christ rising anew. And as I pointed out earlier, very briefly, we even see that in the sky. So let's look now at those aspects. And here they are. So here's the first one that I spoke to earlier, that Osiris at 29 degrees, Aries retrograde, squaring Pluto. And of course, here we've got the Phoenix rising from the ashes. And I like this particular image because it kind of has the masculine feminine effect to it, because we see here with Mars, which represents the fierce protector, that it's in sextile to Venus. And so at the time that he's rising from the underworld, remember that the sacred masculine is always serving and supporting the sacred feminine. And of course, the next Venus synodic cycle is going to be in Capricorn in January. So we see already, as this particular synodic cycle for Mars, the Aries Mars synodic cycle continues on through the first 7, maybe 8 months of that Venus synodic cycle, it's showing here, to me at least, that this sextile, remember a sextile is a very harmonious 60 degree aspect. I liken it to kind of like, best friends, supporting each other. And so it's showing me here that this risen, fierce protector is going to be there to support the sacred feminine, not only through the close of the Gemini goddess journey, but through the beginning of that Capricorn goddess journey. And what's interesting, I don't know if we've talked about this yet, but the next Mars Synodic cycle will be in Gemini. So I find it fascinating that we're completing the Gemini goddess journey. And after this Mars Synodic cycle in Aries, it will be a Mars Gemini journey. So I think there's an interesting correlation there.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And then we see here that Mercury, Magdalene, and the Sun were all conjunct and opposite the North Node. We'll look at that in a minute. And then we had the Moon trining Medusa. So let's see this on the chart. So what happened was, from the time of the eclipse, remember that the Sun was down here at 27, the Moon was up here at 27. From the time of the eclipse, just 3 days later, the Moon has moved from 27 Taurus down to 9 degrees of Cancer, and the Sun has moved from 27 Scorpio up to almost 1 degree of Sagittarius. All of that movement in just 3 days. And so what we see here is, this is Mars right here, standing right across the sky from Uranus retrograde in Taurus. So this is huge because, we've been having these 3 Uranus square Saturn events this year. Saturn in Aquarius, Uranus as the ruler of Aquarius. So what's interesting to me, and I'm probably getting ahead of myself, but I can't help it, is when we get into this Capricorn goddess journey in January, the Capricorn goddess came onto the world stage in 1974. Prior to that 1974 shift to Capricorn, the goddess was Aquarius. So I feel that even though we have shifted to this Capricorn goddess, that we still have this Aquarian archetype that is kind of holding it up, so to speak, that the Capricorn goddess is standing on the shoulders of the Aquarian goddess that shifted in 1974. Well, this Uranus Saturn square that's been happening all year, the last one will be next month on Christmas Eve day, I think has been preparing us for what's going to be happening through the Capricorn goddess journey. And I'll talk more about what that preparation is and how, and why that preparation is necessary later, next month. I mean, yeah, in the Sacred Feminine class next month. But so we see here that not only is Uranus been preparing us for this next goddess journey, but we see here that Uranus has been preparing us through this fierce protector rising from the underworld. Aquarius is all about the multidimensional self. How much more are you embodying towards being embodiment of your multidimensional self? And the more that you embody your multidimensional self, this physical body, which is really a quantum computer, becomes more activated.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Now, if you want to know the science behind that statement, because that's a big statement, I encourage people to go to Gaia and watch series 3 of Greg Braden's Missing Links. And I also encourage people to watch Joe Dispenza's information too. All of the science that they're talking about in those programs that they're doing has to do with the fact that the science is now proving that we are quantum, these physical bodies are quantum computers that our spirit self is experiencing this dimension through, and that we can change the programming through that quantum computer in terms of what happens in our bodies, and also in terms of what we create and manifest around us. So, you know, this is a part of the ascension process. And this is what we've been talking about since Venus moved into that third of her 4 phases, the ascent phase. This is the ascension that we are all going through, and we're seeing it here in Uranus, and its movement through Taurus is a big part of facilitating and supporting our own personal ascension, as well as the ascension of humanity and the earth, right? Taurus represents the earth, Gaia. And so we see here that Mars is sextile to Venus. Now remember, on the eclipse, Venus and Merlin were together at 12 degrees. 3 days later, Venus is starting to pull away. Merlin's at 13 and Venus is at 15. But, you know, Merlin is that consciousness of alchemy. How can we alchemize our consciousness, our physical bodies, what we manifest, the energies that we're receiving from the cosmos in terms of these aspects? And of course, to me, I personally align Merlin with the Scorpio energies. What about you, Maureen?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. He is definitely embodying Scorpio energies. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, again, as I said earlier, this to me is also just further supporting this, new balance that the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine is offering to us to be able to come into calibration with, so to speak.
Yes, absolutely. I have begun studying more about the Merlin Scorpio energies and that through the myths, of course. And I've bought a couple of crystals. There's a Merlinite crystal, and there is also a mystic Merlinite crystal. They both have different energies. So I plan to really bring Merlin in to my daily work more and more into the next year. I've always enjoyed reading the legend and understanding who he was, or like I've learned that Merlin is actually a title, just like Magdalene, but we've all gotten to the point where we think of him as the mentor to Arthur, and essentially there's more Merlins than just that person. So that energy is going to be different. You know, once you understand that title can be given to different entities, it changes it. And so I'm going to start working with that and understanding how it's a little more expanded. And so I'm excited about that.
Well, and I just shared with Maureen recently an article that I got from academia, and it's called, let me pull it up here so I can call it by the right name, because it's very fascinating. Hold on a second here. It's called Jesus Potter, Harry Christ.
Yes, I'm really excited about that. I haven't done
It's
it
long.
yet.
It's like a book. It's not just an article. It's like a book.
It'll take a while. Yeah, right. But I am really excited because, as you know, Harry Potter is very much a part of my experience. I went through 10 years of thinking incessantly about what was going on with that story and loved every minute of it.
Right.
So very privileged to have been a part of it, experiencing in the moment as it happened. And, very few of us will ever have that experience again. It just doesn't happen like that.
Right. Well, the premise of this article is that, isn't it interesting that the Harry Potter character and his storyline mirrors the character of Jesus Christ and his storyline.
Yes.
And and he, of course, touches on the fact that the Christians, or at least fundamental Christians in the beginning, were up in arms over this Harry Potter thing because they didn't want their children, thinking it was okay to dabble in magic and and wizardry and all of that stuff. But what I find fascinating is that it was really timely because of the fact that it's prepared people to receive this Merlin consciousness, this Merlin consciousness of alchemy, which is magical, which, Merlin was a wizard, the character.
Merlin was a wizard, and he was very much a part of the energy of Merlin, was very much a part of the story. Yes. And I don't think you could miss it. Even the way that the characters presented, he looked Merlin. He just looked exact in the story. He was described it. And of course, she followed the hero journey, the hero's journey. I mean, the steps of it as well. And she didn't deviate from it. It was just absolutely amazing to me how that. Well, yeah, it was supposed to happen. It was absolutely a collective wake up.
It was a collective wake up, absolutely.
Global. It was a global phenomenon. And I don't think we'll ever experience in our lifetimes anything like it.
Right. And the reason I bring this to our awareness is because next year is going to be a hugely alchemical year. Pluto and Scorpio, alchemy, Merlin consciousness, magic. And so, we have been being prepared for what's getting ready to unfold and manifest from next year on.
I agree. And it's interesting that the stories, the books, continue to come out in different formats. So it's never off. It has never been off the stage. She has different illustrators doing all of the books again. She has pictures, picture books where you can see each stage of the journey and beautiful paintings. And it's never been off the stage. Everybody sees the stories every day in some way or another. And so when she says it was a download, I mean,
Right.
it came.
Right.
She was on, Harry Potter walked in fully formed. We know that it was time, and she was the body through which this came through, to be given to the world, and a magnificent gift it was. And she gave up 10 years of her life to it. I mean, she was there for us every minute. It just amazed me how that worked out. She never, ever left us. I mean, she was always being interviewed. She was always excited to be with fans. It was hard because that kind of fame is amazing. And she had to make sure that all the questions did not give away one thing. You
Right.
had to experience it in real time.
Yeah.
And so it was definitely a gift.
Yeah.
And sometimes I get tears, I get tears just thinking about what that was,
Yeah.
and how it came out, and personally in my own life, what it did for me. So
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and so I would like to invite all of us to consider knowing what's ahead for next year, and having experienced a taste of it at this most recent eclipse, the first of the 7, that you may want to reread or read for the first time the Harry Potter series to help support you and get you through it.
I absolutely agree. There is so much in each story that every time I read it, every time I listen to it, I brought in all my senses. I read, I listened, I watched, because the movies came out. They said it was the perfect storm. That's what it was called. It was the perfect storm. And all senses were engaged.
Yeah.
And they will be again.
Yeah.
If you start the journey with him, and I'm doing that. I'm actually reading again and watching movies again, and I listen in my car. So I mean, it thrills me even now, and I've probably read and listened 10 times, at least 10 times through the series.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, it meant so much to me.
Yeah, yeah. And so I also encourage everybody to dive into this article or book that I found, or that got sent to me by academia, Jesus Potter, Harry Christ by Derek Murphy. I'll put a link to that below this video, so that anybody that wants to read that book can get to it and read it. And I just have a free membership on academia, so it shouldn't cost you anything.
I don't know if I joined or not. Maybe I did, because I get lots of articles sent to me based on my interest.
Right. Absolutely.
It's a fascinating place. I mean, it's really lots of things going on there, and it's many people are contributing.
Yes. I have actually received numerous articles that have been very relevant to the work that we've been doing, not only this Sacred Masculine class, but also the Sacred Feminine class. So I'll definitely put that link below. So, and here's the Osiris square to Pluto that I mentioned earlier. So, obviously when we do your personal session, maybe next week or the following week, whenever we can schedule that, sooner than later, we'll see how your solar return chart is being influenced by these activations, but pretty powerful ones. And of course, then we've got here the moon in Cancer trining Medusa. And so, Medusa, remember, all of those patriarchal fears that paralyze you, right? Those fears come from woundings and they just stop you in your tracks. And so we see here, in my opinion, the emotional healing by the Divine Mother of those patriarchal fears, so that now that the risen fierce protector is here, you can move away from that patriarchal energy and not be so triggered by it.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to understand that a lot of our fears don't come from this lifetime. So we may be dealing with wounds that we have and we don't understand where they could possibly have come from. Just in my own case, I am fearful of torture. I've worked a lot about that, and I'm better, but I believe in some life that was my experience, and that is a wound, a trauma that you bring forward into new lives that help you to heal back through your line and who you were, and in doing that you actually contribute to the collective fear, whatever that is, because lots of people went through that.
Yeah.
Not just in this lifetime.
Right.
So.
Absolutely. For myself, I had this very irrational fear take over me after my son was born. And it lasted for a year or more, maybe a couple of years, where every time he was getting a bath, whether it was in the sink or in one of those little baby bath beds that they give you, or I was terrified that he was going to drown.
Mm-hmm.
Terrified.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was probably something that together he and I karmically experienced in a past life.
Mm-hmm.
But I was so relieved when that gripping terror released me. But from the very beginning, from the moment he was born,
mm-hmm.
I just couldn't even stand to be in any way distracted when he was around water being bathed.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't trust leaving him with anybody else while he was being bathed.
Oh yeah, I understand that feeling. I had an animosity to my son that I could not figure out. It was the strangest thing. When he was born, he's my first child, and I couldn't bond. I just could not bond. And I'm thinking, what's the matter with me? And I finally had a dream where I was in a fight, an actual fight with somebody, and I started to stab them with a knife, and just fiercely aggressive. And that person I was stabbing, as I was stabbing, turned into my son.
Gosh.
Yeah, I thought, when I woke up, of course, I wasn't thinking, how I might be receiving a message about this relationship. But after I learned more about reincarnating within a group, within a family group, you come in together to do different things for each other. And we were, enemies at one point.
Wow.
And when he came in, I was not ready for that, and I knew, of course, on a soul level that we had agreed to do this, but that poor kid, he probably couldn't figure out what kind of a mother he had, and I tried to explain it to him. One of the reasons that I believed, in the very beginning, maybe 2-3 years it went on, there was just a kind of a strain there. I loved him dearly, but I was just always angry, and it can affect you like that. So being aware of bringing things forward, which is the way of growth, right? I mean, that's what we do.
Right.
How we grow is to address karma. And the only way you can address karma that was created in a lifetime on earth is to come back into earth and heal. You can't do it any other place.
Right.
So that was a big wake-up call for me. It's that, yeah, oh boy, you can really be affected by the wounds.
Yeah.
And karma's created.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, fortunately for us, when the fierce protector rose, we had this trine between the moon and Medusa. And so, Scorpio, Cancer, water, this is all emotional. And in this instance, healing. And with Scorpio, we're talking deep wounds, deep healing by this divine mother energy in Cancer, the sign that she rules. So this is a beautiful aspect to be having at this particular activation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what gets activated in your chart when we do your
yeah. Always an adventure.
Always an adventure. Okay, so that's everything. A pretty quick class. So any questions coming up around anything we've discussed for this activation of the fierce protector rising from the underworld?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and remember, we discussed in the last class that happened on November 22nd, the day that JFK was assassinated. And we had used the Kennedy brothers as examples of embodiments of that fierce protector archetype from when they were on the world stage.
And I think it's very odd that this year, the 22nd came and went with very little news coverage.
Yeah.
Usually they coming up to that, we begin to see the day when he flew into Dallas, and we see pictures and all that kind of stuff reminding us how significant that day is in our history. There was hardly anything on it this year. And I thought that was very strange,
that
in the news, in the mainstream media, they didn't cover it.
Yeah.
It's odd.
Very odd.
Yep. And, I didn't hear anything from anybody, even the people who feel that that was a government covert action, was to take him off the stage, the world stage. So nothing. Was just so strange. They don't want us to think about that.
Yeah. Well, and isn't it interesting that the assassination happened in that Scorpio time frame, right? November 22nd, you're still in Scorpio.
Yes.
So that event was definitely going to be, shrouded in secrets, right? Scorpio, there's nobody more secretive and deceptive.
Yes. And the planning, no, there isn't. I know that for a fact. It's strange because all of that was in planning stages, obviously, from the time they knew he was going to be there, or maybe before, planning for him to go there. That's no big deal.
Well, and he had been warned. He had been warned that was going to happen and not to go, but he chose to go anyway.
Yeah, he was a kind of person who wasn't going to back down. He was, there were no threats that could deter him. I think it's kind of weird that he went with the convertible. I would have maybe chosen, you know, a different way, but he wanted to engage the people as close as he could. And I understand that, but no president does that anymore, ever. They never are in an open vehicle.
Right.
And I can't remember when they probably changed that after him, right after him. You can't do that.
Right.
And up to then, presidents did that.
Mhm.
You know, they very much campaigned and drove. You know, my dad took me down to see, I was just a child, maybe 3, 4 years old. And Eisenhower was running for president. My dad really liked Ike, you know, because of his fabulous guidance during World War II. And so we went down there, and he was driving. He was just driving through the streets in Seattle. This was, and he was sitting up, you know, on the back of a convertible. You know, you could see him clearly. It was exciting. Everybody was so excited, you know. And my dad put me up on his shoulders, and he's 6'1", so I could pretty much see everything up there. And we were so excited when he drove by. But you don't get that close anymore.
No.
You know, you just don't.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, we've already had our group session for this month, but this is the schedule
Okay.
for the
Okay.
December classes, and these will be the final classes. Now, I will be doing a series of classes on the Pluto return. You and I discussed that. And so those are
Right.
3 classes, one for each of the activations, and there'll be more information coming out on how you can sign up for those 3 classes. But as far as the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine, we're just going to take a break from the classes.
Yes.
Because it's
Okay.
been really intense. Really intense.
Yeah.
All right.
We've got to focus.
Yeah.
Narrow it, actually.
Yeah, we gotta next year with that Pluto return and the classes for that and the recordings for the Taurus Scorpio eclipses, that's going to be really heavy.
Mhm.
Heavy. And you know, the important thing is to remember that we have to keep looking to the light. We have to keep looking to the light so that we don't allow that the heavy darkness of those
Mhm.
energies to swallow us.
Mhm.
And we've been prepared. We've been prepared now through these cycles, the Gemini goddess cycle, this Aries Mars cycle. We've been prepared to be able to go into that year, to stay in the light and not get lost.
Yeah, that's for sure. Thank gosh.
Well, and my intention, of course, is that the Taurus Scorpio eclipse series and the Pluto return classes will help support people in navigating that too, and keeping that strong connection with the light.
Mhm. Yeah, and also would remember to be discerning about what we listen to and what we read, and know that the Pluto return is going to be the new catchwords, and there will be a lot of people that want to cash in on it, and they may not have our best interests at heart. So we need to be discerning.
That is a fabulous point to make, Maureen. You're absolutely right, because remember, Pluto in its shadow, Scorpio in its shadow is very deceptive.
Deceptive.
Very deceptive. So yes, discernment will be very necessary. Excellent. All right, my dear, any final thoughts, words, wishes?
No, just thank you very much for all the work that you do, and helping us to understand what's happening in the sky and how it relates. So thank you.
My honor. You're welcome. Thank you for the acknowledgement. All right, my dear, I will talk to you soon, and let's get your personal session scheduled before
Okay.
that December class, which is on, what day is it?
18th,
On the 13th.
13th, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
All right, my dear.
I will definitely, I'll give you my days that I have that we can do it, and you can just pick from there that will fit with your schedule.
Sounds like a good plan.
Okay, all righty.
Love you.
Thank you. Love you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.